The Palo Alto Networks firewall, App ID configuration. So we're taking a step further down into my policies and the security systems that I'm setting up in here and getting into those applications. What can we do different and how can we do it? So as we get started in here, really, like I said before, the application ID is a way of further detailing or developing our security policy. We've already covered some basic policies in there as far as between a couple of our zones, most likely going from the users and VPN out to the internet and some between the servers. So I want to take this time to kind of, well, get a little bit more detailed. Okay? So I'm going to look at the policies that we have and really update them. So change, as an example, my permit any going out to actually have specific applications. I want, let's see, Flash, DNS, Web, SSL, and Ping. Okay, so basic stuff going on in there. I also want to have a deny with logs. So that way I can find out anything that's not part of my specifically permitted applications. I want to see what they are. I want to have that logging information for it. It's kind of cool things. I want to do other stuff that we can put in here. Create an application block page. Okay. Let's see what else we can add in. An app filter for file sharing. Definitely don't want to have that, so we'll go ahead and deny that across the board in there. I want to log some information for that. I will put a policy with my DBL. So the dynamic block list that we created before, we're going to go ahead and bring that into the policy now. Not really related to App ID, but just kind of fleshes things out a bit more. So basically we're going to go through here and make this more of a robust policy, if you will, and certainly by doing things, like I said, with the filters, we're also going to do it where we don't have to keep updating the policy because we know what type of stuff we want to block, and my application updates will automatically handle that for me, where anything tagged with what we're going to use for file sharing will get denied at that point, okay, or whatever we decide to do for the application, for the action. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. And again, I know you and I want to get onto the device and start playing with things, but we'll see how simple this actually is and how much more power that we can bring into the security policy. So let's go ahead and dive in. So a few things kind of as we get started. I want to dive back into our wonderful world of setting up our policies really, and kind of going through here and seeing what it is that we have so far, what we've done. Okay? Basically, we're allowing a lot of the stuff. Pretty much, users to internet, everything's good to go on that. We're just going ahead and permitting it through, all the way through, no restrictions. So all the cool stuff there. Now, with that in mind, before we go ahead and change things on here, I want to go ahead and kind of do a little test. So we've seen on our host before, go into here, where I was able to look at the different host information. Backspace over that. Okay, different port numbers and stuff, so we have full connectivity to it. We also have connectivity to the outside. Okay, so like I can telnet to a route view server. This is one of those, BGP servers out on the internet. So all sorts of cool things on there. So you can do summary row. No, it won't let us do summary. But anyway, it's just a server that you can telnet to that's public information out on the internet. Okay. Now, the reason that I want to do that is because in our example here, what we're going to go through things and change stuff around where I'm not going to be allowing the telnet, or specifically not including it, I guess is kind of a good way of looking at things. So that'll be a quick way of testing the stuff as we go. Now, a few other things that we've done, I went ahead and made a few modifications to stuff as we went in here. In my dynamic block lists, we had the one that we added the other day. I've added 3 more. Okay, those 3 happen to be off the AppSpot site. Okay, so looking at this real quick, there's a number of them that we have access to, and really I could use any of them. I just picked a couple of them just for entertainment value. Spamhaus, a couple of good SMTP things for, stuff to drop you don't want to get to, and then a few brute force people who've been known to do brute force attacks or known compromised hosts. That should give us, about close to 3,000 entries all in all. But this way we can build the stuff into policies. Once I have them in here, once the lists are actually in here, then I can name them in policies, which is really one of our instructions as far as what we're going to get down to in there. Okay? So let's go ahead and see how it is we go through and do that and modify our policies as we go. Okay, so on our list right here, thinking about what we're doing, we had 4 different lists now of stuff that we had going on. Okay, so we'll call this a general, yeah, I'm typing correctly, okay, drop list. Alright, and so source in here is going to be stuff coming from the internet zone. Alright, so we're going to kind of kill all traffic to it on the way in. We can also do it for the way out. We'll kind of do one step at a time. Now, source address right here, we want to add stuff. Notice I have all of my addresses, and this, of course, will grow as we build more things in there. But as I scroll down, I have my address groups that we created, I have my block lists, and then I have regions. Regions are based on things learned with Palo Alto. So if we're doing regions in terms of like country codes and things right here, you can start blocking or doing policies by doing that. Right now, I'm not going to be concerned with it. So I'm going to be concerned with things that are part of my brute force blocker, or where's my, whoops, not that one. Okay, known compromise list or test DBL. That was the other one. Okay, so add one more. And test DBL. So from either of those 3, okay, coming from the internet, perfectly cool. User, don't care. It's going to be any. Destination, honestly don't care, because you can go into any of them. Application, same thing. For this, I don't care what it's going to be. So any for the services. Action, we're going to go ahead and kill it. Now, I also want to go ahead and log at session start, so that way I have some information on there as we go. I won't be able to put any profiles, 1, because I haven't created any yet, but 2, because it's a deny. Right. So there's my information. Now, what are we missing? We're missing something. Oh, destination. Any. There we go. Now we can hit OK. All right. So small things. Okay. So we have this in here right now. Okay. So see my general drop list is number 5. Now, obviously, when I do this, I will want to move it up. I can do that by clicking and dragging. I can do it by editing the number in the column. There's a number of different ways to do that. But we'll go ahead and do that. I also want to add one more policy of my email drop list. Okay, so source again, source zone on here is going to be internet. That's perfectly fine. User, everybody, destination. Really, I don't know where my email zone is going to be, so we'll just leave it as any for right now. Application. Now in here, I specifically want to do it for SMTP. All right, so I'll go ahead and find that. Click that for my application, because that's really the part that I want to have. Service category, application default's perfectly fine, and then I want to deny the information in there. Oops, I forgot on my source page. Here we go. My address list. Oops. Add. And this will be small things. Otherwise, we won't get any email at all if I don't put this on here. All right, so my Spamhaus drop list. There we go. And I'm still missing something because my OK is not highlighted. What am I missing? Any. That's selected. That's selected. Application SMTP. That's selected. Service category. Application default. Okay. Actions. Deny. What am I missing? There we go. On destination, we have to make sure and select any. All right. So all denied, all logged, all okay. Cool. So I have the information and email drop list right here. Okay. So move that up 1. Okay. So we have our drop lists on here now going along with those DBLs. So this is good. So we have that part of the information. Now, next thing I want to do is really kind of change. Remember my list of requirements in there. My all users to internet, I actually want to edit because what we're going to do is we're going to go in and permit some specific applications. And this is what's going to kind of change a little bit of stuff in here. Okay, so in applications, we want to add, let's see, one said Flash. Okay, so we got Flash. We can add DNS. That would be an important one. Add web browsing. So do web right here. There's really a whole bunch of things that still qualify as web, but specifically web browsing is my general category there. And we'll add SSL and add ping. Okay, so those should be the applications that were listed on there. Everything else, app default, so not going to make any changes to it. Login session end, allow it, that's perfectly good. So everything we're doing right now is perfectly fine going to the internet. Go ahead and hit OK on that. All right, so now other things that we were told to do is to create a specific rule for denying things from the or adding other rules, I should say, so after this part, to deny anything going out from users to internet. Now, let me ask kind of a question for you. We already have this user to server ping, all users to internet right here, that we've changed to allow specific applications. Now, we went over this before when we talked about our general security policy. If I don't match a specific rule, what's the firewall going to do with it? That's right, it's going to drop the packet. So if I'm already dropping the packet, why would I create a specific rule that says drop anything else? Okay, because I have options for it, more specifically logging. Okay? That's going to be the important part in here, is we want to visualize or see what things are or are not happening on our firewall. So the fact that I deny the traffic is cool, that's all well and good, but as I start to build it out, I need to be thinking about, okay, so a user does something I don't want them to do, possibly we need to fire them, it depends on what it all is, but you need to have information to back it up. Not simply just denying it, because just denying it and not saying anything means nobody knows anything. If you want to log information or have a record of it and say there's going to be consequences, then you absolutely have to have those controls. So we need to create a rule on here, about users to internet deny. Again, just kind of from a naming perspective so that I have everything. So my source zones, remember the two of them we're going to look at. We're going to look at clients, and I'm going to look at my user VPN. Perfectly fine. Any source address, any user, destination is going to be the internet. So pretty much the same rule that I had before. Application will be anything, service will be anything, action is going to be deny, but here I'm going to go ahead and log that information. So this way I'll have that all in there. So click on OK. I'm going to build all this. Alright, now where do we put this? Users to internet deny. Okay, so it is below number 4, which is perfectly fine. Things like this I usually put at the very bottom. Okay, so I want to make sure to have that. Okay, so that way it's at the very end of what's going to happen. Just, again, logic perspective. Remember, we're done top down. So as you start putting things in here, as you start inserting things, it's good to understand where they're going to show up, how it's going to be processed, and how that's going to be done. Okay, so we've done those things. Kind of check off our little list here as we go. Now let's see. Other pieces I want to do. I want to have an application filter and go ahead and create that. Alright, so that's cool. And then create an application block page. Okay, so we can go ahead and do those things. So those are our next steps for what we're going to get to on here. So remember all those applications and stuff that we have going on. Now this would be kind of a good point to look at. Our objects are. We have our applications and our application filters. Okay, so applications right here, lots and lots and lots of things going on for it. So let's go ahead and create an application filter in terms of what we have. Now there aren't any by default, so all you got to do is hit add, and we're pretty much presented with that same page, tells us all the stuff. We can filter on any of these things in here. Okay? So when I start filtering by this, when I start looking at what I have, what I want to go with is file sharing. Okay, so there's my subcategory right here, and then it'll narrow down what I have going on, specifically browser-based. So those are the two filters that I'm going to be looking at in here. Okay, so and we can go ahead and name this also. So browser-based file sharing. Very catchy name that we're going to come up with. So there's my application filter. Now, what was special about a filter versus an application group? Absolutely. These will be automatically updated whenever the new applications come in, because based on the criteria that we set up, those categories in there, it may have 5 applications today, it may have 200 of them tomorrow. That's all going to happen magically for us. So back in our policies, now I can go ahead and create a policy saying drop file sharing. And my source at this point would be from my users. Okay, whoops, not doing that. Add. I get click happy sometimes. So add my clients, add my user VPNs on there. That's cool. User, don't need any destination. Honestly, it could be anybody, but we'll go ahead and say internet right now. So not going to allow any of that. I might put servers on here. Well, no, we'll just put internet. Keep things easy that way. Okay, so that's going to be where I'm going or how I'm going to be doing things. Application. Now, in this part right here, that's where we're going to get a little tricky with it. Okay? So my ad, as far as looking at my applications, there's going to be a lot of stuff, and I'll still scroll down here, and it's not going to give me everything that I possibly need. However, oops, I did browser based. So browser, we'll see that when we do this, it shows up under application filters. So just like before, when we saw the addresses with the dynamic block lists, our filters show up this way too. It is good to remember what they're named, because otherwise we're going to have some problems. Service category, application default, let it deal with it, that's perfectly fine. And then actions on here, we want to deny and log the information again. And I'll go ahead and hit OK. So drop file sharing, and this appeared down at the bottom. If we're going to drop stuff, we'll go ahead and drop it near the top. Right, so I can do as a third rule. Presuming that I haven't dropped the complete session by this point, then I want to go really from a user-based standpoint, it'll be that way. So looking at how we're building the things on here, this is the important part for looking at what I'm doing with my applications. Now, one other piece, the last thing that we had going on for it was to look at the information from an application drop or application block page. Okay, so right now things are going to be blocked and not working once we commit them anyway, but in a web browser it won't tell anybody why. Okay, so we can do this going into my management profiles. Okay, so remember my interfaces, that's where those were. So let's go to network and go interfaces. And which one is my interface? Okay, so I have my user profile. Okay, so this is good. Now, when I start looking at my management profiles, interface management, okay, and I'll start looking at my user profile. Remember, response pages was the thing that we had to make sure were checked, and we did that ahead of time, so we're perfectly cool on here. Okay? So when we go into now device, and we can look at response pages, which are somewhere in the list here. I have everything expanded out. There we go. So response pages, and make sure that we have the information on here. So application block page right now is set to disabled. So we can go to application block page. Let's go click on disabled. Enable it. There we go. So click on that part right there, and we are good to go. So now we have those things, we're good. Now what we can do, let me go back to policies just so we can kind of see everything here, and I'll hit my commit button, because that of course makes everything take place. Hit OK on that. And once we're done, we don't have a whole lot of web services set up, so there's some things I won't be able to see on there based on what I've done. However, at least not yet anyway, however, we can go in and try to telnet again to that route view server, because we should be able to not do that this time, or should not be able to do that. I can speak really good English today. Awesome. Okay, so coming back over here, click on this, and let me up arrow, and it's trying, but it's not working. So how's that for an interesting one? On the other hand, let me see if I can ping, and unfortunately I didn't try this before, so I don't know if it worked. Is that 86? 86, I think. Okay, so I can ping it. So we have reachability, however, Telnet as an application is not allowed for us right now. We could go back onto our browser and into our monitor and look at traffic logs. Okay, what we'll see right now, notice right here, the drop. Okay, we've got a couple of drops from my .2 host. So on here was dropped because of the rule, users to internet deny, users to internet deny. Okay? So all these things in here, because it wasn't allowed, remember we changed our permit portion to only allow certain things. So my DNS as an example was allowed right there. It worked fine. My ping would have worked fine. Probably showed up under a different thing on here. But the telnet was not allowed in those applications, so it fell down to the next set of rules, I'm going to go through my policies. So it was not allowed, all users to internet, it was not allowed by this right here, was not allowed by this right here, because it's to servers, not allowed by this policy, so it went down to this one, and it matched it, because it matched everybody else, which told us to drop it. Okay? So all the cool things for it. That is the concepts of App ID, what they can bring to us, and how we apply some of those things into our wonderful world of security policies. So we've done several cool things in here, all surviving around the world of App ID. Okay? So we learned how to add those things, into our filters, got some information to it, expanded my DBL, added more cool things in there, which of course really led everything into policies. Because remember, everything revolves around policies, makes the rockin' world go round here. So when we start looking at that, this will help us feed into things. We saw exactly how that was treated when we allowed certain applications, and it allowed on different ports and do cool things that way. But when we went back to see something that we previously could have done, and because it was no longer allowed, what actually happened in there as far as dropping and logging the traffic exactly like we told it to. So welcome to the world of App ID and all the cool things that it can do with us. I hope that this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.